My twin sister and I found identical safety deposit box keys in our mother's jewelry box after she died. Same bank, same box number, except one key was labeled for Emma, and the other simply said not yet. I'm Emma. My sister waited 11 months before finally admitting she'd opened her keys box the very same week our mother died, and had been hiding what she found inside it from me ever since. She confessed during Thanksgiving dinner, of all moments, voice shaking as our entire extended family suddenly went completely silent around that table. Inside her box wasn't money or jewelry like we'd both assumed. It was a sealed letter, our mother's handwriting on the envelope, containing one devastating sentence that my sister had apparently reread privately, alone, nearly every single night for almost a year straight. "You need to open yours now," she said quietly, sliding my untouched key across the table toward me, while relatives exchanged confused, uncomfortable glances. I drove to the bank the very next morning, hands shaking uncontrollably on the steering wheel, terrified of whatever specific truth my mother had apparently decided I wasn't emotionally ready to handle until exactly this particular moment arrived. My box contained a different letter entirely, along with a faded hospital bracelet and a photograph of a baby that definitely wasn't me based on the visible birthmark near her tiny left ear. My mother's letter explained, in careful, deliberate handwriting, that my twin sister and I weren't actually twins whatsoever. We were the surviving half of an original set of triplets, born the exact same stormy night decades earlier. A third sister had existed, briefly, before complications during birth forced an impossible medical decision nobody had ever previously mentioned to either of us throughout our entire lives. My mother's letter admitted she'd given that third daughter up for adoption immediately afterward, convinced she couldn't properly raise 3 infants alone following our father's sudden death just weeks before we were even born. My sister's letter, it turned out, contained a name and a current address, information our mother had apparently spent years quietly gathering through a private investigator before finally sealing it inside that specific box for whichever daughter she guessed would eventually feel brave enough to actually pursue it. My sister had been sitting on that address for 11 entire months, too afraid to act alone. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I demanded, though some exhausted part of me already understood exactly why she'd hesitated for so long. "I didn't want to break your heart alone," she admitted quietly. "I needed to know you could actually handle it first before I destroyed everything you thought you knew about our entire family history together." Grief apparently made even honesty feel dangerously optional. We drove to that address together the following weekend, two sisters suddenly uncertain whether they were actually twins anymore in any meaningful sense that mattered. A woman in her mid-30s answered the door, and the three of us stood there in stunned silence, staring at faces that were unmistakably, undeniably identical in ways no coincidence could possibly have ever reasonably explained away. Her name was Grace. She'd grown up knowing she was adopted, but nothing else specific, no names, no circumstances, no explanation beyond vague reassurances that her biological mother had loved her enough to give her a better life during an impossible situation neither of us had fully understood ourselves until literally this exact week arrived, unexpectedly, into all three of our separate lives, simultaneously. DNA testing confirmed everything within 2 weeks. 3 identical sisters separated at birth by tragedy and impossible circumstance, finally reunited 34 years later because of 2 small brass keys and 1 dying mother's carefully timed, deliberately staggered confession. Grace cried harder than either of us when she finally saw the photograph our mother had kept hidden specifically for this exact reunion. The 3 of us spent our first holiday together this year, an empty chair no longer feeling quite so empty anymore. After 34 years of unknowingly missing someone none of us had ever actually met. My mother knew exactly what she was doing, staggering 2 keys, 2 timelines, trusting us to eventually find our way back to each other naturally. Would you have opened your key immediately, or waited like my sister did? Comment immediately, or waited below. I'm genuinely curious which one you'd choose, and subscribe for more true family secret stories.